Marcus Cole thought the hospital cafeteria at midnight was the loneliest place in America. He thought the worst pain was sitting there alone, eating vending machine sandwiches while remembering the night 3 years ago when Jennifer died on the 5th floor. He thought nothing could break through the numbness anymore. He was wrong, because what he overheard at 11:47 p.m. on that cold January night would shatter the carefully constructed walls around his heart and force him to feel everything he'd been running from since the day he lost his wife and unborn son. And when he recognized the impossible choice this young mother was being forced to make, something inside him broke something that had been holding back 3 years of rage at a system that values money over human lives. This is what happened next. County General Hospital cafeteria on a cold January night at 11:47 p.m. Fluorescent lights humming overhead, creating harsh white illumination. Gray linoleum floors worn from thousands of footsteps. Institutional green walls, scattered plastic tables and chairs mostly empty during night shift. Smell of disinfectant mixing with stale coffee and institutional food. Large windows showing dark parking lot outside with occasional ambulance lights flashing red and blue. Atmosphere of exhaustion and medical desperation. An exhausted 26-year-old hospital cafeteria worker named Kayla Martinez, wearing wrinkled teal scrubs with coffee stains, dark circles under bloodshot hazel eyes, wedding band still on thin finger from dead husband, sat at a corner table with her 18-month-old son Mateo making slight wheezing sounds in her arms. She hadn't slept in days, hadn't eaten, could barely stand. But she had to keep going. For Mateo, the small wheezing baby clutched a tiny stuffed motorcycle, the last thing his daddy gave him before the drunk driver hit. Mateo didn't understand why breathing hurt. Didn't understand why mommy cried all the time. Didn't understand why the nice ladies in the pharmacy said they couldn't have the medicine that made breathing easier. All he knew was the scary feeling when his chest got tight, and the nebulizer machine that helped. The one they couldn't afford anymore. Kayla was on her phone trying to explain the impossible to her sister. Her hand shook. Her voice cracked. This was her breaking point. A moment of complete defeat. She didn't know that in 30 seconds, her life would change forever, but not in the way she hoped. That's when a cold 48-year-old hospital billing administrator named Karen Pritchard, wearing expensive charcoal gray business suit with pearl necklace, perfectly manicured nails, icy gray eyes behind designer glasses, approached her table. Karen's face showed no empathy when she saw the struggling mother and wheezing baby. She didn't see a grieving widow. She didn't see a dying child. She saw unpaid invoices. She saw someone who owed the hospital money. Someone she could pressure without consequence. She placed collection notices on the table with a sharp tap of her nails. 8 months of harassment distilled into one final ultimatum. Debts from Daniel's ICU stay before he died. Medical bills for trying to save a man who was already gone. $3,000. Payment plans. Wage garnishment. Legal action threatened. Kayla looked at the numbers through tears. Looked at her bank account on her phone showing $863. Looked at the prescription estimate the pharmacy had texted. $847 for Mateo's asthma medication and nebulizer supplies. Looked at the text from her landlord. $850 rent due in 3 days. The math was simple and devastating. Choose medicine or shelter. Her baby's lungs or a roof over his head. Life or homelessness. What kind of country forces mothers to make this choice? Kayla made a phone call to her landlord right there. Her voice barely a whisper, begging for an extension. Explaining about the medication, about her baby, about being widowed, about trying so hard. The answer was cold and final. No. Rent due in 3 days or eviction proceedings begin. No exceptions. No sympathy. She hung up, put her head in her hands, and made the decision that would haunt her forever. She'd buy the medicine. They'd live in her car if necessary. At least Mateo would be alive to hate her for it later. The people in the hospital cafeteria watched. Some looked away in shame. Others pretended their phones were suddenly fascinating. No one helped. This is America in 2025. We film everything. We help no one. That's when Mateo looked up at his mother's devastated face with those big brown eyes, struggling to breathe, and reached for her with tiny hands asking in baby sounds why mommy was so sad. And 3 tables away, someone heard. Someone who understood that pain. Someone who had been there. Kayla couldn't answer her baby, couldn't speak, could only hold Mateo and sob silently in the middle of the hospital cafeteria while he wheezed against her chest. Mateo didn't understand why mommy was shaking. Didn't understand why that mean lady made her cry. Just wanted the scary chest feeling to stop. Just wanted to breathe easy again. In that moment, Kayla felt completely alone in America. Like God had forgotten her. Like no one in this entire country cared if she and her baby lived or died in a parking lot somewhere. Like all those people watching on their phones would rather scroll than lift a finger to help. Like the system designed to protect the vulnerable was actually designed to crush them. She had never felt so helpless, so broken, so utterly destroyed. But she was wrong about being alone, because someone did care, and he was already standing up from his table. If watching this injustice breaks your heart, if you believe no mother in America should ever have to choose between medicine and shelter, please like this video and subscribe, because what happens next will restore your faith that good people still exist in this country. Marcus Cole had been sitting 3 tables away eating a cold sandwich. He had seen everything, heard everything, every desperate phone call, every broken sob, every impossible choice. And it hit him like a punch to the chest, because 3 years ago, he had sat in a different chair on a different floor of this same hospital making a similar calculation. Jennifer's experimental treatment or mortgage payment. Emergency section or medical bankruptcy. Try everything or accept death. He had chosen to save her, chosen to fight, chosen to go into debt, and lost them both anyway, his wife and his unborn son, while drowning in medical bills that took 2 years to climb out of. He looked down at Jennifer's silver bracelet wrapped around his thick wrist. Her delicate jewelry looked so fragile against his calloused electrician's hands. She had worn it every single day, never took it off. Not even in the delivery room where she took her last breath. He couldn't save her, but he could save them. Marcus stood up, his work boots scraping against the linoleum floor. The sound made several people look up from their phones. The atmosphere in the cafeteria shifted. Karen Pritchard was still standing over Kayla with her collection notices, completely unaware that everything was about to change, until Marcus's shadow fell over the billing administrator's perfectly pressed suit. And suddenly, the entire cafeteria went quiet. Karen Pritchard turned, and her professional mask slipped for just a moment, because she recognized Marcus. Not personally, but she recognized the type. The calloused hands covered in electrical tape residue. The work clothes that hadn't seen the inside of a dry cleaner. The grief-worn face. The kind of man who'd lost everything to this system. The kind of man who had nothing left to lose. The most dangerous kind. Marcus didn't say a word to Karen. Didn't need to. He simply looked at her with eyes that held 3 years of rage at hospital billing departments, at systems that profit from death, at people like her who saw human suffering as spreadsheet entries. Karen's hand shook slightly as she clutched her collection notices. She recognized that look, the look of someone who'd been broken by medical debt and came out the other side harder, angrier, done playing by rules that only protect the rich. She stepped back, then stepped back again, her expensive heels clicking nervously on linoleum. Everyone in the cafeteria was watching now. Phones out, recording, finally paying attention. They all saw her for what she was. A bureaucrat with a clipboard extracting blood from stones. Marcus turned his back on her. The ultimate dismissal. and knelt down in front of Kayla and Mateo. The message was crystal clear to Karen and everyone watching. This is over. Leave. Now. Karen. Pritchard retreated to her office like a scolded child. And as she did, Marcus did something that broke everyone watching. Something none of them would ever forget. Marcus gently placed his hand on the table next to Kayla, giving her space, not crowding her grief. He spoke quietly so only she could hear. He'd overheard everything. He understood. He knew that impossible choice. Because 3 years ago in this same hospital, he'd lost his wife Jennifer and their unborn son to pregnancy complications, while medical bills piled up around him like gravestones. But what happened next was what made Kayla start crying again. This time, not from despair, but from complete shock. Marcus reached into his worn wallet. Inside was a faded photograph of a beautiful woman with her hand on her pregnant belly, smiling at the camera. Jennifer. The last photo taken before she died. And behind it, his business credit card from Coal Electric. He pulled out the card and placed it carefully in Kayla's shaking hand, folding her fingers around it gently. For Mateo's medication, for the rent, for groceries, for whatever else she needed this month. No repayment, no questions, no conditions. Just help. Because Jennifer would haunt him forever if he walked away from a mother and baby who needed exactly what they needed 3 years ago. Someone to give a damn. He touched the silver bracelet on his wrist. Jennifer wore this every day. She would have helped. She would have given everything. This is what she would have wanted him to do. Mateo looked up at Marcus with those enormous brown eyes, wheezing slightly, and reached out tiny hands toward this stranger, and made a sound that broke Marcus completely. Dada? Marcus's eyes filled with tears. The first tears he'd cried since Jennifer's funeral 3 years ago. Because this baby reminded him of the son he never got to hold. This broken family reminded him of his own shattered life. And he realized something his grief counselor had been trying to tell him for years. Helping them was helping him heal too. And in that moment, something shifted. For all of them. Because Marcus realized that saving this family might be the thing that finally saves him from drowning in his own grief. 6 months later, Kayla had stable housing and a promotion at the hospital. Mateo's asthma was controlled with proper medication, his breathing easy and strong. And Marcus had become Uncle Marcus, attending Mateo's 2nd birthday party, teaching him about tools, being present in ways he never got to be for his own son. Kayla smiled again for the first time since Daniel died. Mateo laughed again and called Marcus's name every time he visited. And Marcus, he found something he thought died with Jennifer in that delivery room. Purpose. Because sometimes the people we save are the ones who save us back. Sometimes the family we choose matters more than the family we lost. And sometimes, in a country that feels more divided and cold every day, one moment of courage in a hospital cafeteria can change 3 lives forever. Can remind us that Americans still help Americans. That good people still exist in small towns and big cities. That we're not as alone as we think. What would you have done if you witnessed this impossible choice in your local hospital? Would you have looked away like everyone else, or would you have stood up? Comment below and share this story with someone who needs to believe that everyday heroes still exist in America.